All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Today we're going to be talking about how to minimize downtime and data loss. Specifically, we'll be talking about how to protect against ransomware. And you see two Gartner logos on the screen here. The Gartner 2015 logo is that we were named a cool vendor in business continuity and disaster recovery. And then in 2016, we were named a visionary on the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Disaster Recovery as a Service. So those are those two logos that you see there. Quick introduction and just a few housekeeping announcements. My name is Carla Federigo, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Infrascale. And I want to invite everyone on the line today. Please do reach out to me after the presentation if you'd like to chat more. All of my contact information is here up on the screen. And then a few questions that I frequently get asked. I'm asked if there's a recording, and yes, we are recording. It will be available for you in the next 24 hours at infrascale.com/webinars. You also have the slides available to you in the handout section now. So if you just find the handouts tool, it should be just under the questions tool, and then you can download those handouts. We have the slides as well as a DRAS Attitudes and Adoption report, and then we also have a ransomware survival guide. So all of that for you there. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please do use the question tool to ask them. You can also put in comments, and we'll definitely come to the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And then lastly, we'd love for you to join the conversation. So you can follow us on Twitter at Infrascale. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and we'd love to chat with you. So our agenda for today, first we're going to be talking about the evolution of ransomware. We're going to be talking about the best practices for prevention, how to recover from an attack, and a Q&A and a prize giveaway at the end. So that prize giveaway, all you need to do to be eligible for that is ask lots of relevant and on-topic questions, and one random person will be selected during the Q&A for that giveaway. Okay, let's start with a quick understanding of what ransomware is and how it's changed over time. So ransomware can take several different forms, but it's a type of malware that denies access to a device or to certain files until a ransom's been paid. So what it's actually doing is encrypting a user's files, and then it's forcing them to pay a ransom to that hacker to regain access to their own data. Now what we've seen is that over time, malware has been changing, and ransomware has been changing because of that. So let's take a quick look at the evolution of ransomware. Now, since computers have been in use, programmers have been able to create malicious software. Even earlier than 1986 and 1989, back in 1971, we saw a really early example of how quickly malware can spread through systems with the creeper virus. And then as you see through 2006 and 2010, the development of high-speed encryption really changed the game for ransomware. And we're going to talk about some of these more recent examples. We see CryptoWall, CryptoLocker, and LOCKY here in 2016. So we'll talk about some of these specific examples in just a minute with the rise of Bitcoin as cryptocurrency. Now, the proliferation of malware is moving at a really, really alarming rate. So by 2007, as much malware was produced in that single year than had been produced in the previous 20 years altogether. So with us now in 2016, well, where does that leave us? There's two types of organizations now. There are those that have been breached and those that have been breached but simply don't know it yet. Now here are some of the trends in ransomware that we've been seeing lately. So in just the first quarter of 2016, almost 3,000 new malware modifications were reported. And we know that ransomware is getting activated by end users. That end user lets it in, and it starts modifying all the files on that system until a triggered message for a ransom demand comes in. And once that ransom demand comes in, then paying it involves that e-currency, that cryptocurrency that we just mentioned, so like a Bitcoin. And once the hackers verify that payment, then they provide the decryptor software, and the computer can start the long process of decrypting all the files. Now, this is a lengthy process. That's why 72% of ransomware victims were unable to access their data for 2 days. And that can take as much as 5 days in other cases. So it's really a question of, can my business survive that? And what's going to be costlier, the downtime or the cost of the ransom? Now, we know that they're getting away with it as well because of the amount that's been paid in ransom. So in all of 2015, there was $25 million paid in ransom. Now, just the first quarter of 2016 alone, over $200 million has been paid in ransomware. So we really know that they're getting away with it. And these are stats that were reported from the FBI. 34% of SMBs fell prey to phishing emails in 2015. So those malicious phishing emails, that's how one end user gets infected, and then that network effect happens. It starts spreading and can really spread itself across the network and take down an entire organization. And then the problem with ransomware, of course, is that you have no idea for weeks or even months because it's working slowly and silently in the background and modifying all of those files on the system based on either the last date modified or the last date opened. And modifying all those files until you get a triggered ransom demand like one of these. So once those files are encrypted, the hackers will display a screen like this simply explaining how to pay to unlock your files, how much needs to be paid. And in the past, what we saw is that ransoms started in the $300 to $500 range. But now, fast forward to 2016, companies are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. And then they start telling you that the ransom is going to increase each hour, that it's not paid. So let's take a look at some of the symptoms to know if you're infected. These are some of the obvious ways to know if you have a malware or ransomware issue. So first is that if you suddenly can't open any of your normal files, maybe you're seeing some errors that the file's corrupted or has the wrong extension. If you have a window that opens to a ransomware program or a program that you simply can't close, especially if it's accompanied with one of those messages that we saw on the last screen, one of those ransom demands. Also, if the program you have open warns you that there's a countdown until the ransom increases, or if there's a message that you won't be able to decrypt your files, instructions. So those are some of the symptoms. Now, on top of that, there are so many different types of ransomware in circulation. These are some of the most popular strains that we've been seeing, the most well-known, I should say. So CryptoLocker is one, and we saw that on the evolution of ransomware slide just a moment ago. So CryptoLocker is one that targets computers running Windows, and it restricts access to those files and data. And CryptoLocker has been spreading through fake emails, and they're designed to mimic the look of a legitimate business through phony FedEx, through phony UPS tracking notices. I myself received one of these emails. For the next webinar, I should include a screenshot there so that everyone can actually see what it looks like. Ransom 32. So Ransom 32 is a variety of ransomware as a service, And that effectively puts the power to create ransomware into the hands of anyone, regardless of their technical know-how. So that one's really scary because it's coded entirely using JavaScript. So that's part of the reason it's so dangerous. It can target computers running Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux. And lots of other strains of ransomware as well. Of course, they're going to infect the victim's data and files, but then they can spread as well. And that's where we'd like to talk a little bit more about LOCKY. So LOCKY is one that's really changing the game. And the reason is not only does LOCKY have a worldwide reach, but it's specifically targeting businesses, and it has that network effect so it can spread. So businesses throughout Europe, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia have all been hit with these massive email spam campaigns, and they're carrying that malicious JavaScript attachment. So even closer to home, recently Amazon.com was targeted by a massive phishing campaign, estimated that about 30 to 100 million email spam messages were sent out, claiming to be Amazon.com shopping order updates. So it really does have a worldwide reach, which makes it extremely dangerous. And then it's targeting businesses specifically. So like we brought up just a moment ago, when ransoms first started, they were in the $300 to $500 range, but now the ransoms are in the thousands of dollars. So in this one particular example, the Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center was hit with the ransomware, and the hospital was asked to pay $17,000. So, and then like we saw, the bigger problem sets in when one workstation is infected and those files get encrypted, and then it can travel across the network and encrypt files on your network drives. So that's how just one single infected user can bring the whole department down or bring an entire organization to a screeching halt. So what's really important to discuss next is how do you prevent an attack from happening? And if you did encounter a ransomware attack, what are the best practices and what do you do going forward? So now we have a really good understanding of what ransomware is, how it works, but let's shift gears and start talking about what can be done to prevent it and how to work against ransomware. All right, so before we dive into this next section, I have one quick poll here that I've brought up on the screen. So I'm going to launch this quick poll. You should see it popping up in just a moment or two. Simply asking, when it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? A, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or one of my customers has been a victim of ransomware. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. Or C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. I'll give everyone another moment to vote here. So 50% have voted so far. I'll leave this up for just another moment here, give everyone else who'd like to participate a chance to reach forward and vote. Looks like we have a tie so far, 50-50 between A and B. Let's see if we can get a couple more participants, and then we'll get this poll closed down. All right, let's go ahead and share these results. So what we see here, I'm sharing the results now, so you should see those come up on your screen. 33% of you said yes, I have been a victim of ransomware. I'd love to know what happened there, what the backstory is. Did the ransom get paid? Did you roll back to backup? What happened in that case? You can use the question tool to let us know. 67% no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach, which is great. Okay, let me hide the results of this poll here so that we can jump back into the presentation. And what you should be seeing now is the next screen that says avoiding ransomware. BDR can protect you, but only if you do it right. Great. So diving into the next section here where we're taking a look at backup and disaster recovery, and we're also going to take a look at on-demand failover. So here are the immediate steps if you get infected. One, simply remove the infected machine from the network. If you do get infected, that's the first thing you want to do is get the infected machine completely off the network. You want to stop the malware from spreading, and you always want to assume that the malware could make use of that internet connection and spreading itself to other users. So isolate that machine, stop all network communication from the spread of that malware. Next, reset your BIOS time. So in some instances, you can actually stop the clock this way. This gives you more time to prepare your backups and prepare the recovery as well. So according to Privacy PC, IT admins don't have to be afraid of that ransomware timer countdown if you simply set your BIOS time back. So this is really going to give you more time to calm down and recover your key files and eliminate that malware. Now third, if you're hit with malware, you want to roll back from a previous backup. So having a recent backup is going to make it really easy for you to restore operations as quickly and painlessly as possible, saving time and saving money for your business. So right now, these are the two options that most of us think of when we experience ransomware. So either pay the ransom or restore systems. Now, since ransomware silently, slowly works over weeks encrypting files on your computer, then having a backup solution in place and also regularly testing that backup solution to make sure that it's running properly is one critical part of protecting your business from ransomware. Now, if you don't have access to a recent backup, then you may have no choice but to pay the ransom. And that takes time, like we saw earlier, 2 to 5 days. So really consider, would that downtime be costlier than paying the ransom? And what's my cost per hour of downtime? How would that affect my business? So these are all some things to take into consideration here. Now, these are a couple of screenshots from my backup and disaster recovery account with Infrascale. By default, Infrascale keeps everything. So I have every version ever backed up, and I can roll back to any date that I choose if I need to, with the low RTO, or recovery time objective, and low RPO, point objective. And I'm going to repeat one more point again, though, because it's really important. It's that Infrascale keeps everything by default. So the importance of that forever archiving is really critical. Most BDR systems out there age content out after a few weeks or maybe a month, but ransomware can take months to get into your systems discreetly. So it's not just the idea of having annual backup system in place, but you need a backup system with a forever archiving component built right into it. So my Infrascale account isn't just the backup and recovery software on my machine, but here's a quick snapshot of my dashboard. It provides me a unified management console for all of my data protection. Doesn't require VPN access. So from here, I can view activity alerts, I can access reporting and monitoring. I can monitor account usage. I can even manage retention settings here. And I can also control remote deployments, and I can use our MSI to deploy anywhere in the world. So lots of great functionality there, but one particular screenshot here that I want to share is the account level details. So when ransomware goes through your system, it's going to modify every file that it touches. If it's a file that we're backing up, we'll recognize it as a changed file. And then in our dashboard here, we get account level details. So you see this analytics tab of the last 24 hours, the last 30 days, et cetera, there. So you can get analytics of which machine has the most changes. And what we did with this analytics tab is we created a new alert, and it's called anomaly detection. So if you have a large number of newly modified files, you'll want to know what type of event happening, what's happening to all my data, what's touching my data. So an average backup of changed files will continue as normal, but an unusually large backup is going to trigger an anomaly alert to the admin. So if they're subscribed during alerts, you'll see that and know that that's something that needs to be investigated. What could be happening, and really consider there may be ransomware. So let's take a look at anomaly detection in action, a little bit closer up. So here's a look at anomaly detection, and I am realizing now I need to spell check this slide and change that O to an A. I'll get that fixed. But here is a quick, just 1-minute video here of seeing anomaly detection in action. So to configure the anomaly settings, I just go to the Settings tab, I click on Monitoring, and then in the monitoring page you see the Enable Anomaly Detection setting. So here we let you set the threshold. A warning's released when that threshold is passed. So we calculate a rolling average number of modified files over time for each single device, and then if that modified file count for a backup passes that predetermined threshold here, then we release a warning. So if you're subscribing to those error events, you'll get an email alert, and it also automatically appears in the general monitoring page, so you can see more info there. And if you see an event, of course, we recommend you investigate it. Now you can also open the details to see things like backup duration. You can see total files processed, how many files were modified, and you can also download the logs if you select the manage action that we're going to see in just a minute here if you want to investigate at a file level. So typically what we see is users see maybe 5 to 10 modified files per day. So much work is done online, but if you see anything 3 to 4 times that, it's going to be cause for investigation. So having seen that, I have one more quick poll that I'd like to launch. This next poll you'll see pop up on the screen here. When it comes to BDR, which of these is you? So A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. Or C, I still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. So I'll give everyone a moment to vote in this poll here. Okay, so far we have 50% of you have voted. Give everyone another minute to participate here. All right, and now we have 80% have voted, so let me close this poll down. And so far it looks like we have 25% say I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes, and 75% of you saying I wish I had backup and disaster recovery, but simply can't afford it. So we are going to talk about that, of course, in just a moment here. Let's talk about disaster recovery on demand. So what if backup simply isn't enough? Then how do you avoid ransomware? Well, that's where DRAS comes in, Disaster Recovery as a Service. So it lets you quickly fail over your systems, and it supports DR to be on demand, like in this scenario here. So in this situation, here are some end users that are working, but unknown to them, they're about to experience a ransomware attack or any type of unexpected outage. So with on-demand failover, you can simply log in from any browser, even if you're on a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone, and you can roll back to a previous state and instantly recover a clean version of the entire environment, not just files and folders. But that way, everyone keeps working and the whole process happens in just 15 minutes. So let's take a closer look at this. Let's see a little more detail behind it. So here's a more detailed way to look at it. On the left, you have cloud backup, and on the right, you have disaster recovery, failover. So on the left, you have the traditional backup flow. It's really your typical backup and recovery, which has your production box and your backup server next to it. And then it's copying data over to some storage. So it could be copying to tape, on-prem disk, to the cloud. So any offsite storage there. And then as soon as an outage happens or a ransomware attack happens, you need to copy that data back out of storage again. And then you have to reconfigure, reboot. This all takes a lot of time. So like we saw earlier, the recovery time here is going to be measured in days. But taking a look at the right-hand side, DRAS is very, very different. So instead of having to copy data over, back, and forth, and moving data twice, we simply want to spin up a working environment where that data is. So we want to virtualize and create those machines on the fly and reconstruct your data center infrastructure where your data is sitting. And this change is really important because if you look at the recovery time, you can fail over and we guarantee 15 minutes or less versus that recovery time objective of 2 to 5 days. So clearly, what Infrascale aims to solve, we're looking to eradicate downtime and data loss. Now, we can't eradicate the causes of downtime, but what we're trying to do here is mitigate the pain that a business experiences when an outage occurs. And this is really important because of how we saw ransomware has been evolving. So in the past, really the main issue would be file and folder data loss, maybe an individual person's data. But now in 2016, what we're facing is downtime and business interruption. So while backup, of course, we have that as a solution, what you want to be looking at is a failover solution. In the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see that mere backup disappears, and failover is going to be replacing those backup solutions. Now, quick note on data encryption, because data encryption and privacy is very, very important to us, and we take it very seriously. So rather than other solutions taking raw files and sending them to the cloud, Infrascale uses this military-grade encryption system, which is a double-blind encryption. So encryption locally, at rest, and also in transit. So that local encryption is at 256-bit AES, and then in transit via 256-bit SSL, and then encrypted again in the data center at 256-bit AES. So The idea behind that encryption is specifically for business data. And again, it is really the best practice. You don't want to just put your data in raw and encrypt it in the cloud. So in addition to this encryption system, Infrascale is completely end-to-end. We offer protection for all servers, workstations, and endpoints, unlimited archiving with that proactive alerting that we saw, the anomaly detection. We offer automated retention policies and admin control that you completely set those policies. We offer unlimited test recovery so you can ensure that those policies you've set are working as expected and you can test them as often as you want. And then finally, we offer 365 days a year of support. That's 24/7. And if you take a look at this map here, what you see is each one of these red dots indicates a business that Infrascale is protecting. So we protect thousands of businesses globally with our 16 geographically dispersed data centers. Now, in that last poll that we ran, the majority of you said, I wish I had disaster recovery, but I simply can't afford it. So let's take a look at pricing, because Infrascale does offer a breakthrough pricing. Now, this comparison is apples to apples. So it's a 3 terabyte of cloud backup and 10 terabyte disaster recovery appliance. Now, what we did here is compare with Barracuda, Unitrends, Datto, and Infrascale. So what you really want to look at is, of course, an apples-to-apples comparison. And you can see that with Infrascale, you save up to 70% in comparison. Now, taking a more detailed look at this, here are all of the factors that you really want to be considering. So this chart helps summarize all the key criteria that you should be looking at in a competitive DRaaS solution. So you can see all the major vendors just don't stack up the way that Infrascale does. We took a look at affordability. Does it offer cloud spillover? Is there complete coverage? Is there push button failover? And then how about encryption and security? And what's the RTO, recovery time objective? So these are all really important points, and what we found is that with Infrascale you can achieve failover at the cost of backup. So we do offer you two great solutions for ransomware, both cloud backup and disaster recovery, without having to sacrifice any of your critical data or pay any ridiculously high ransoms or lose any profits due to downtime. So what I'd like to offer everyone for joining today, since we know that ransomware is the #1 cybersecurity threat, I'd like to offer an enterprise-grade backup and disaster recovery system for you to test out. So 60 days free to get set up and running. And if you'd like to take advantage of this offer, you can simply write 60 days free into the question tool and we'll get you set up with that. Now, before we dive into the Q&A, I do have one more poll that I'd like to run as well. So let me launch this last poll, and I'll give everyone a minute to vote here, and then we are going to dive into the Q&A. All right, we have about 50% of you have voted so far. I'll leave this poll up for just another moment. Okay, it looks like we have 75% of you have voted so far. All right, okay, let's go ahead then, and last chance here to vote before we get into the Q&A. So if you'd like to reach forward and participate in this last poll. Okay, wonderful. So let me close that poll down, and then again, if you would like to take advantage of that 60 days free, all you need to do is type in 60 days free into the question tool. And then with that, let's get into the Q&A. So let's take a look here. First question asks, can you give me a quick overview of the company history and customers? So great question. Infrascale as a company was founded in 2011. We're headquartered in Los Angeles, California. We are venture-backed. We have about 150 employees worldwide. And we're providing secure failover and cloud solutions to over 1,000 MSP partners across the globe. So in turn, we're protecting millions of endpoints and devices and about 20 billion data objects. And so that's where that map comes into play that we saw just a minute ago, all of the businesses that Infrascale is protecting. Next question says, you didn't share specific costs. Can you give more detail? What's the pricing model? So pricing starts at just a few $100s if you're using cloud storage, and then our appliances range from a couple of terabytes up to hundreds of terabytes. We have a 1U unit through 9U unit. So it really depends on how much data you have, and if you're looking for cloud backup or disaster recovery or both. But everything is included in the pricing. So there aren't any costs associated with the number of tests, the number of recoveries or support. Everything is all included, and it's simply based on the amount of data that you have to protect. Next question says, are there any overage costs as limits are met? What if I go over capacity? Is my data not backed up? So if you go over capacity, we're going to contact you and we'll let you know that you need more space, but you're also going to receive warnings as you get close to capacity. So we're never going to leave you hanging without your scheduled backups. Next question says, is the backup real time, or can we determine the frequency of when each server is backed up? So the policies here are completely configurable. So you can set it up to protect every 15 minutes, every 24 hours, really whatever you'd like. Okay, are there any minimum bandwidth requirements? So the minimum requirement is at least a 1 megabit connection. And next question says, how does the appliance throttle bandwidth usage during production times? So we do have a powerful bandwidth shaping tool, so you can decide how much bandwidth it should use at different times, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Next question says, where are your data centers and how many do you have? So we did see that, that quick map of all the businesses that we're protecting, but this is a great question to get more in-depth for those of you, especially who have data sovereignty requirements. We have 16 global points of presence, including data centers throughout the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, South Africa, and South America. And all of our data centers are Tier 3 and Tier 4 data centers. So they do, of course, then allow us to enable compliance with HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, PCI, Safe Harbor, CGIS, SOX compliance. So because our data is encrypted at that 256-bit AES, it's sent over SSL, it's encrypted again at rest. So if you want to take it even a step further than that, with UltraSafe Max, you can not only define the password, but you can also define the encryption key itself. So if you're subject to any regulatory frameworks, make sure that whatever vendor you choose, that vendor has that the compliance factor built in that you need. Okay, so next question says, is there a setting to allow high priority backups versus lesser valued data if space is limited? So yes, you set the priority based on the age and value of your data. And we have time for a few more questions here. Let's see. Is Infrascale an agent-based backup, or does it communicate with the hypervisor? Do I have to install agents on devices and servers? So when it comes to agent-based or agentless, we support both. What we recommend is that within the data center, you use the agentless approach and connect directly to the hypervisor. But for things like maybe a Unix server or Linux running on Metal, then we have agents there. Okay, are your data centers high availability? How is this different from HA? So HA is different, different from DR. High availability is generally concerned with real-time replication, and then if you mess up your production copy, you're syncing that to your replicated copy as well. Also, our solution's far less expensive than HA as well. Does your solution integrate with RMMs and PSAs like ConnectWise or Kaseya? Yes, we do. We're also going to be attending IT Nation, the ConnectWise conference, in about a month from now. We hope to see you there. Let's see, next question says, how does Infrascale handle backup sets with a very large number of files? Is there a point at which you recommend splitting a backup set into more than one? So we can handle millions of files in a backup set. Because we have support for NAS filers, Windows file servers, you're really going to get into the millions of files before you need to worry about that. So you shouldn't need to split your backup sets. Should be good to go with that. Okay, next question says, do you offer monthly payments? Yes, we do. We offer flexible payment options, and we have monthly payment plans available as well. So you could get started today. Instead of, say, paying everything up front, we can allow you to pay on a monthly installment basis for the 1200 series and 1500 series. And looks like there aren't any more questions coming through. If anyone has any last-minute questions to get in, please do so now. But it looks like we had everyone participate in that poll. And then don't forget, it looks like we had a lot of great questions come through. We are going to be doing that giveaway that we mentioned early on, so keep an eye out for your email. The person who asked the most on-topic questions is going to be the winner there. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time here, and we very much look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks. Have a great day.